I've taken questions from Twitter about my books and writing, and I'm going to answer them. That's it. Simple concept. I didn't even need to explain it really. I could have just launched into question 1. Let's go anyway. Right. Krista Blub asks, favourite fiction books about books and writing, and what is your daily routine and schedule if you have one? I really like the writing class, which is like a murder mystery about a group of writers, and one of them is murdered and they know it's someone else in the group, and the professor, the creative writing teacher, has to like track down the murderer. That's a good one. The Secret History by Donna Tartt, that's about a group of very rich classic students at a university who are very obnoxious writers, and again there's a murder. love my murder. And what is my daily routine and schedule? I get up and go for a swim, usually like past midday, because I write best at night, so I get up late. After I've been for a swim, I come home, clean my guinea pigs, play with my dog. If I'm like I make yogurt every week, so I might be doing that, setting that up in the slow cooker, having some food, and then I go across to my office and do about an hour and a half of admin and like social media replying and stuff, which is a big part of the job that is getting bigger. It does vary from time of year, so if I've got a book out, I'll be doing more in the run up to release, and then I'll do my admin, and then I'll probably come and have some dinner, hang out with my family for a bit, and then I will start working. Usually I start actually writing around like 5 or 6, or editing if that's what I'm doing, and then I'll keep going until like midnight, 1 a.m. Yeah, it's always hard. The struggle between doing work and actually doing productive work like writing is always hard. At the minute I'm doing a lot of events. I think in the next 2 months I've got like 20 events planned. Like, I'm away from home for a good 2 weeks in different hotels around the country, and I'm really worried that I'm not going to do anything except events because I'll be so tired, and I'm going to have like a lot of work to do as well, so I'm still concerned about how I'm going to deal with that. I'm probably going to take my iPad and get a Bluetooth keyboard and stuff. But yeah, so if I'm doing events it's a bit different, because my schedule is not really my own then, but if I'm at home then that's what I do. Next question is from Netherland Vicky. She says, why do your books hurt me? How are Clive and Ella? Are they happy? And when are we getting coffee? Why do my books hurt you? Because that's the best part of writing. Like, I really want to make readers suffer. Like, a lot. I love it when people say that my books have made them like laugh or cry or like have nightmares, or like it's literally the best part. So it's only going to get worse. Sorry. And how are Clove and Ella? Are they happy? They are very happy. So right now Clove is applying for universities. She's trying to decide whether she wants to stay at St Andrews and be taught by her mum and her dad, which she thinks is a bit of a nightmare, or apply to where Ella lives and study at the same university she's at. Ella's in her 2nd year, so she could study there and live with Ella. So she's trying to decide what to do about that. Yeah, they're both great. They're long distance at the minute, so the letters and emails in the book that are set a bit in the future in their relationship are happening around about now. So there's a scene where they fight about going to a New Year's Eve party. That's like happening in real time, this far on from the book, from when the book was released. Kate and Matt are doing pretty good too. They're thinking about having a baby, getting married again. Yeah, they're all doing great. Bart's doing pretty well as well. He just got an update from Tom that made him a bit more feisty. Not that he needs it, but you know. So my babies are all good. And when are we getting coffee? Vicky, we will get coffee, I promise. Hopefully you'll be seeing me very soon. That sounds creepy. In a not creepy way, maybe. So the Steam Goth asks, how did you achieve a balance between time for writing, studies and uni life? As I find it very difficult to put a time aside for writing. So I wrote The Next Together during university. Well, more specifically, I got a book deal before I graduated. I didn't actually write it while I was studying. I wrote it in my summer holidays Easter holidays, Christmas holidays. So I wasn't really balancing studies and writing because that would have killed me. I did a really intense course. I was doing like 30 contact hours a week plus coursework and all that, because I was doing chemistry and physics. So I had a lot of labs, and so if I'd tried to do writing on top of that, I couldn't have coped. But I did do a lot of like plot solving and reading research during term time. And then as soon as my classes ended and I sent in my last pieces of coursework, I would be writing every day of the holidays. And I got it done in the summer holidays after my second year. Then I went for a year abroad in my third year. While I was in my year abroad, I started submitting it to agents and got an agent when I finished my third year. And by the time my second semester of fourth year was over, I had a book deal. Yeah. So it took me 6 sets of holidays basically to write in first and second year. Laura Collins asks, do you have any tips for recent graduates? There's a great book, Little Black Book, that I recommend if you are a creative type who wants to do like freelance work. That's really helpful for sort of the etiquette and ways for women to get ahead, and how to work from home, that kind of stuff, which I found really useful because that resonated with me a lot, because that's the situation I'm in. I won't lie to you, I don't really have many tips because I feel like I'm still a recent graduate and I'm really scared. So I graduated 3 years ago and I don't feel like I'm stable in my career yet. I feel like I could, at any point I could not sell another book and then I'd have to go and try and get my first job, because you can't really, like, you can't use being an author as a reference. So I would be applying for jobs as a graduate. So yeah, I don't really have any tips because the whole thing terrifies me. I don't know what I would do if I didn't sell any more books. Good luck, basically. It's a scary world. Don't be ashamed of having to live with your parents if it takes you a while to get your feet off the ground, because I'm still with my parents. I decided I wanted to go straight into buying a property instead of renting. So I'm just going to live with them as long as that takes. And like most people now live with their parents compared to with partners. It's a completely normal thing for our millennial generation. So please, if you get on with them and you're willing to like accept their help, then it can give you it'll be a massive weight off your mind if you're trying to look for jobs and you don't have to worry about bills. Ria asks, do you have any song, TV, film or book recs? Did you finish writing book 5 and are you at Yale all 3 days? I've made a playlist for Loneliest Girl, which includes a lot of Halsey, it includes Elton John's Rocket Man, David Bowie's Life on Mars, all of the traditional space songs. There's a link to that on my blog. TV, I love Arrested Development. Arrested Development is like one of my biggest nerdy obsessions. It's something that you can watch like literally as many times as you want and you'll always notice new references because they bury that many Easter eggs in it. And I love the characters. They're like a true family to me. And we're getting a new series, so I'm very happy. Film, Stoker, Pride and Prejudice, the 2005 one. The Riot Club, the female reboot of Ghostbusters is really good. Jupiter Ascending, there you go. And book recommendations. My Goodreads, I have reviewed like 300 books. I have lists of my favourite books of the last 7 years. If you go on my profile, and I've got lists of recommendations of books that I would read if you like any of my other books, like The Next Together, The Last Beginning, The Loneliest Girl. Links to all of the books that inspired and I would recommend for people who like them. I have endless types of recommendations, my friend. So head yourself over to Goodreads. That is a whole other video. And I do them every month on this channel as well. So yeah, I'm not going to recommend any more books because you're going to get bored of books and I can't do that because I'm an author. I need you to read books. Are you finished writing book 5? So book 5 is complicated because book 5 is actually book 4. So it's coming out 4th, so next year. Next autumn after Loneliest Girl, and so I'm on a tight schedule. I had to write the first draft in 3 months, which if you go and look at my week in the life of an author video, I just finished writing it, so I was talking a lot about it there. And I'd sent it off to my agent. My agent liked it, so he sent it to my editor, and I'm hoping to hear feedback from her on the 20th of September. When she gets back to me, I will be writing it, writing and editing it constantly for months in between events, and hopefully we'll get it ready for publication next autumn. So the short answer is yes, I finished the first draft. The long answer is there's so much work still to come. I feel like I've done a pencil sketch and I need to make it into an oil painting, and I haven't got the oil yet. Ross at the Royal Bookshelf asks, can you read The Last Beginning without having read the next together? Would there be spoilers for the next together? Yeah, you can absolutely read it. I designed it so it's a sequel, but it's also a prequel in that the events are time travel related, so they happen both before and after the next together. And I designed it so that it would make sense as a standalone, because Clove doesn't know what happened in the next together, and she's the main character, so she's discovering everything herself. So you can start with Clove and then go back and read the next together, and I actually think it works really well if you do it that way, because there are scenes and characters and moments in the next together that you won't understand until you've read The Last Beginning, and then you go back and reread. And obviously if you don't want to reread, then it might work out better to read The Last Beginning first, but it's totally up to you. What the next together is a question and The Last Beginning is the answer. So if you're more intrigued by the tension and like trying to solve it yourself, start with the next together. If you just want a fun adventure without having to worry about being confused about what's going on, start with The Last Beginning. Alice Osman asks, how do you read so many books so quickly, and do you enjoy it, or does it feel like work? So when I first got a book deal, it definitely felt like work. I was on Twitter a lot trying to learn about the industry, and I was hearing about books constantly, specifically contemporary YA books, so set in the modern day about teenagers. And I felt like I had to keep up with the industry and the hype and know what was going on in the publishing world. So I was reading like literally hundreds of contemporary YA books each year, and I was getting so depressed and sad about it because I never read contemporary YA before I got a book deal. I would always read really eclectic genres like historical fantasy or sci-fi about technology, or like I never read in one genre that I could say was my favourite. I was hopping all over the place. So when I was doing that and I was trying to keep on top of the buzz, I really felt really sad about it because I was so bored, and I was like, but I've got to do this, it's my job. How can I be an author of YA books if I'm not reading YA books? And eventually I realised you don't even write contemporary YA, you write sci-fi YA. There's no reason for you to be reading these. Like, you can read the ones you're interested in, but it's going to do you more good as an author to read science fiction books or fantasy books and be making notes on them and applying them to a YA book. So I gave myself permission to read whatever I was interested in, but rather than whatever I felt like I should do as an author. And since then I've been so much happier. If you are struggling with like a reading slump, I recommend joining your local library and then looking on their website for their free ebook and audiobook service. It's usually like an app that you get on your phone, and then you can download any ebooks and audiobooks on their system for free. And they're really good at updating. They've got lots of new releases. I've just listened to Samantha Shannon's new book on it, which came out a couple of months ago, and try and listen to a book instead of reading it, like experience it in a new format without having to worry about paying expensive prices because they're free. It's a library service, and that really helped me to try and get back into reading. Lucy Powery says, if you could put the characters of your books into any other books to live out scenarios, what book would you choose and why? So I'm going to go with Romy because she's my girl. What book would I put her in? I would really like to know what her demon is, so I'm going to go with his Dark Materials series. I think she'd get on really well with Lyra, because Lyra's strengths are what Romy's weaknesses are. Like, Romy's quite nervous, whereas Lyra's very impetuous, and vice versa. So I think they would really learn from each other and become good friends because of that. They would be a great team. Yeah, mainly the demons. I just want to know what kind of cute tiny animal Romy would have. Lucy also asks, what are you most excited and most nervous about for the release of The Loneliest Girl in the Universe? So it's this week, so I should know what I'm excited and nervous about. I am really excited for the launch. I've got 2 launches, one in my like independent bookshop in my little village, and then one down in London for like authors and stuff. And I'm really excited about that because I haven't had a launch since September 2015 when The Next Together came out, and it was a really stressful experience for me because I was like the host, as the boss of it all. I had to do a lot of running around, but it's such a nice memory of like seeing something you've made and worked really hard on be a physical thing in the hands of the people you love. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm nervous that people will be disappointed that it is not the book they were expecting, because it's marketed in a very specific way and there are twists in it, and people might feel that they've been cheated because the blurb didn't tell them what the twists were. So that was what I was really nervous about before it went out to bloggers, but bloggers have really liked it, and like they love that there's a twist and that they weren't expecting it, and that's been like a massive relief. But that was definitely something I was worried about initially, but yeah, I'm not really worried about that as much anymore. Joanna James Lynn asks, how did you get so good at writing so young? Like, did you actively learn about craft, or was it lots of practice, or were you born magic? Reading, like, I was a kid who read constantly. Like, I'd get books out of the library on my library card, my mum, my dad's and my brother's, and then return them all the next week when I'd read them. So I read everything in my local library from every bookshelf, like literally everything. I had some scarring moments with Mills and Boon, and that's why I can write, because I know all of the archetypes and tropes and cliches and twists and characters and dialogue by heart in every kind of imaginable plot. I know what I like, I know what works, I know what's funny. Ellie Cass 6 asks, do you plot much, and at what point do you consider it's time to start writing the book? I plot a lot. Like, I will have, like, I think my last book I had 14 pages of solid outline with like dialogue in there and stuff. So I plot a huge amount before I start writing. Usually what happens is that I find out that I forgot to write the last third. Like, I think it has an ending and I'll be like, okay, that's where the book ends. And then I'll be like, oh wait, I've missed all of the last third of the book. There's so much that happens after this. So always take your outlines with a pinch of salt. I personally don't really understand writers who sort of don't plan ahead, because everything about my world and characters and scenes is written based on what is coming up and like what the twists and plot and end scenes are going to be, and the whole tone and everything comes down to like where it's leading, and it's all got to feel like it's like a recipe. Like, you add eggs because you want to make a cake that has moisture, and you beat it because you want it to be fluffy, and without those things, without knowing that you're making a cake at the end, it's not going to work. Meg Graham, the author of The Space Between, asks, if you were an action figure, what would your little accessories be? My dog, some swimming goggles, a fountain pen, and a Muji stationery set. If you were to write a book inspired by a Lorde song, which would you do? Hard Feelings Loveless is a really good, very angry song that I think has a lot in there that Lorde just like throws away without discussing in more detail, and I think it needs like a whole book to break down some of the concepts she goes into in that song. So yeah, that one.